Hello, everybody. It is April 18th, episode 108 of Three Things with Ian. Welcome. I'm glad you're here. On today's episode, why you should never leave early from any sporting event ever. April is Poetry Month. I'll read a poem for you. And lastly, ticket prices. Let's talk prices. Okay, so, like I said, welcome. Never leave early, right? This is like ingrained in every sports fan's head. You know, you see all the highlights, and the team's down. It's bottom of the ninth. They're down to their last strike. The fourth quarter, there's 2 minutes left. And fans are streaming out. And honestly, those fans are probably fine. Those games are mostly done. The outcome is all but certain. And most of the time, they won't miss anything. But scientifically speaking, crazy things happen. And when they do happen and you're not in your butt's not in the seat, you are going to be very disappointed. So, yesterday, Manchester United, the mighty Red Devils who have fallen on such hard times as of late. Right? I remember growing up as a kid, for some reason in my school, Massachusetts, the only two soccer clubs that anyone knew about was Man U and Juventus, which was kind of odd because, yes, that's a big Italian club, but still. So Man U, you can picture the red logo. They are synonymous with excellence until recently. They have a long and storied history, but they are on a terrible tear right now. They're in like 14th place. Everything's going poorly. Just bad news bears. But they've never had an evening like last evening. 5 goals were scored in the extra time alone of the Europa League quarterfinal second leg against Lyon, another French team. The 5 goals in extra time were the most in any major European tournament in football history. And football has been going on for a long time in Europe. It was a portrait of pandemonium, right? We talked a couple months ago about how the English and the commentators have so many funny little phrases. But it was bedlam. It was a portrait of there was the club emerged from the maelstrom with a 5-4 victory on the night and a 7-6 win on aggregate. It did not look like this was to become the way though, right? With less than 20 minutes remaining, Man U were up by 2 goals. Right? And then disaster happened. Lyon struck back. And so they were forced to go to extra time. But they came back. And they won 5-4. And a lot of fans, thousands, had poured out of that stadium. And they missed what was probably, it's been an embarrassment for them this year, Man U. But this was the highest point of a many low point season. Bruno Fernandes, who is their best player, who is their captain, who is the heart and soul of the Red Devils, his PK in the 114th minute gave way. And then Kobe Manu, who's an excellent up-and-coming rookie, he scored. And they won 5-4. Bedlam. So it goes to show you, you're never out till it's over, right? So in honor of that, let's talk about other great sports comebacks. I'll give you a couple and then a real personal example. So I'm going to give you the top 3 team comebacks. The first one is another one for soccer, but then there's less soccer, I promise. The UEFA Championships League, round of 16. FC Barcelona versus PSG. You know those two teams if you listen to me enough times. After losing the first leg 4-0 in Paris, Barcelona achieved the seemingly impossible, by winning the second leg 6-1. Good golly, scoring 3 goals in the final 7 minutes to advance. Wow, that's a comeback for the ages. Number 2, ALCS. That's baseball, folks. Boston Red Sox versus New York Yankees. This one is etched in my memory bank forever. This is a core memory. The Red Sox became the first and only MLB team to come back from a 3-0 series deficit to defeat their arch rivals, the Yankees, in the American League Championship Series. They then went on, right? This wasn't the World Series. They then went on to break the 86-year-old curse of the Bambino by winning the World Series. What an epic comeback. I was a freshman in college that year. And the greatest team comeback of all time, another core memory, right? It's almost like a Pixar film here. Super Bowl LI 51, 2017, the New England Patriots versus the Atlanta Falcons. I left the couch for this one. I tuned out. I tuned back in, thankfully, but I was one of those people that that lost hope, that did not believe in the science and the odds, and I left. I left the couch. The Patriots overcame the largest deficit in Super Bowl history, which might never ever be broken. This is a huge deficit, 28-3 in the third quarter. There's only 4 quarters in football. They defeated the Falcons 34-28 in overtime. Tom Brady orchestrated a 25-point unanswered streak, leading to the first ever Super Bowl overtime victory. Crazy. 23-8. That is why March 28th is a national holiday in New England to commemorate the greatest comeback of all time. Individual comebacks, I'll give you two. Tiger Woods' 2019 Masters victory after multiple back surgeries. I think he's had more surgeries since, too. And personal struggles, we won't go there. Tiger Woods ended an 11-year major championship drought by winning the 2019 Masters. Comeback was significant because of all the doubt surrounding his return to form, right? And then Michael Jordan, he came back to the NBA. We don't really know why he left the NBA. There's a lot of ambiguity around that. But anyway, he returned to the NBA. He wasn't immediately in championship form, but his return captivated the sports world, and he went on to lead the Bulls to 3 more titles soon thereafter. Excuse me. My own little personal comeback story. The American Hockey League, which is the minor leagues for the professional league, the Worcester Ice Cats, they no longer exist, sadly. I don't know the exact score. They were down 3 or 4 in the third period. Things were dire. Things were not looking good. And then seemingly the next 6 shots went in. It was crazy. Every shot they took, it just somehow found the back of the net. They won the game. I just remember just jumping up and down. I had that kind of, because not every goal was one that you do the huge celebration for. But that third period was just epic, man. It was just, the crowd was out of it, and then little by little they just chip back in, and they won the game. So fantastic. April is Poetry Month, right? This is only since '96. That's when the Academy of American Poets wanted to increase awareness and the appreciation of poetry in the U.S. And I thought, what better poem to read live on the air than one by Shel Silverstein, who's just the guy, right? Where the sidewalk ends. There is a place where the sidewalk ends and before the street begins. And there the grass grows soft and white, and there the sun burns crimson bright. And there the moonbird rests from his flight to cool in the peppermint wind. Let us leave this place where the smoke blows black and the dark street winds and bends. Past the pits where the asphalt flowers grow, we shall walk with a walk that is measured and slow. Love that line. And watch where the chalk white arrows go, to the place where the sidewalk ends. Yes, we'll walk with the walk that is measured and slow, and we'll go where the chalk white arrows go. For the children, they mark, and the children, they know, the place where the sidewalk ends. Whew, fantastic. I didn't do the Giving Tree because I wasn't emotionally available for that. Maybe next year. So, in research for this podcast, I was looking at some more sports stuff. I'm sorry, I'm so drawn to sports right now. Ticket prices. I'm always fascinated by ticket prices. I'm not a big spender on ticket prices. I like going to live events, but I'm always satisfied, with being a little bit higher. Oftentimes very high. When you go to the top level of the sports world, where it's the NBA, MLB, NHL, I typically am also very high up in the nosebleeds. So I looked at a couple of the first round Game 1 playoff games for basketball. Mavericks at Grizzlies. So that's a Memphis team. $21 for the top of the stadium. And yes, basketball, there's not a huge court. It is pretty high up. You can still see things. It is a different sport from that distance. You're usually aided at that height by some big TV screens, and so there's some additional visual aids. Anyway, $21, right? And obviously with fees, double it. That's probably $40. And courtside was $1,231. And so that's a big difference. That's a 50 times difference. Okay. Bucks at Pacers, so that's Indianapolis. $44 for the nosebleed. Maybe add $20 for the fees. $9.50 for courtside, so probably $1,000 and change when you add the fees. Clippers at Nuggets, so this is Denver. So we're not in any amazingly premier cities. There's not Boston, Miami, or LA, right? But Denver Nuggets have been good, and so when teams are usually good for a while, prices do tend to inch or more than an inch. They definitely rise up. Cheap seats were $93, and there was a courtside seat for $2,568. So a really hefty mortgage payment, that's a lot of money. So the question that I pose you guys, and I know not everybody here is an avid sports fan in terms of going to the games live. Live sports are fantastic. I've always said that. It's just everything's better live. Is being courtside 50 times better than the nosebleeds? It isn't. It's probably 10 times better. But if you're the kind of person that drops that kind of money on those seats, to you, that is the same equivalency price of the cheap seats, right? I think a lot of times when we think about money and value, we think about where we are. And if you're not a billionaire, $1 billion, or if you're not a billionaire, $100,000 seems like a lot. And it is objectively a lot of money. But to a billionaire, that's the equivalent of like $10. It truly is. I mean, zeros don't lie. So essentially, prices are silly. Everything's arbitrary. There's algorithms. There's dynamic pricing. There's a whole plethora of variables. But really, I think if you enjoy sports and you can afford, and you're not going bankrupt over it, it's fun sometimes to do a little bit of a splurge. I think that, especially for the NBA, where I've seen the most games for whatever reason, I think your sweet spot is like middle. So not like bottom tier, courtside, or even like the first 30 rows. There's that middle tier where you're close enough to the action where you can see facial expressions. You're probably not seeing like the individual sweat dripping off people's heads, but you're seeing people, and you know, okay, that's number 12, that's Doug Jones or whatever, right? When you're up in the nosebleeds, everything kind of just becomes a wash. You're seeing the sport, you're seeing the individual activity and energy, but it doesn't mean as much visually because you can't identify all the pieces, right? So I think that sweet spot in that middle tier is great. NHL has a bigger rink, so you can be a little bit higher and still get that vibe, get that energy, get that visual sight line, right? But anyway, those are just some of the prices. Now, I'm going to check back in a month or two because the playoffs go forever, guys. And we're going to do like Game 5 at Boston. The Clippers Stadium is brand new, or the arena is brand new. And we're going to look at some of the more premier, and those prices are going to be jacked up. I think I'm guessing, and right, this is my prediction, right? Etched in stone, etched in memory. For the Boston series, if they advance like the third round, which would be like the semifinals probably, and they're at home on like a Game 5, I think the cheap seats, right, which would be the top 5 rows at the top of the stadium, I bet you those will go for like $400. And courtside could be anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000, which is a silly amount of money. And I wish things weren't that way, but I cannot single-handedly fight that. Anyway, those are my thoughts. I read you a poem, talked about courtside seats and the craziness of price, and greatest comebacks of all time. Don't leave your seat. Yes, most of the time you're going to be bummed out, and the verdict is what it's going to be, but occasionally you'll see something magical, and you'll always regret, guys, if you missed those crazy comebacks. Or you'll regret till the end of days, right? That's me. Episode 108 or 7. I'm not sure where we're on anymore. It's April 18th, and good night. Happy Easter. Soon. Bye.